New England Patriots. Few dynasties have ever walked the line between brilliance and infamy like the New England Patriots. Under Bill Belichick, the team turned winning into an art form and scandal into a subplot. In 2007, Spygate revealed that they'd been caught filming opponents' signals from restricted areas. Then came Deflategate, where underinflated footballs during the 2014 AFC Championship sparked one of the most overanalyzed controversies in sports history. Tom Brady was suspended, Belichick fined, and the franchise branded as both genius and villain. But the real story is how it barely slowed them down. Every headline just made them stronger. Every scandal only fed their legacy. And the league never looked at gamesmanship the same way again. Buffalo Bills. The Bills' 2023 front office meltdown shocked fans who thought the franchise was stable. Two top executives, Ron Raccuia and Jeff Littman, were abruptly fired mid-season after an internal probe revealed they'd been romantically involved with the same team employee during a trip to London. Reports described a toxic work environment and massive leadership shakeups. These weren't background figures, they were key to the team's stadium plans and financial structure. Ownership moved quickly to save face, but the damage was done. It exposed cracks behind Buffalo's polished image and turned one of football's most respected organizations into the subject of gossip. What happened in London didn't stay there, and it nearly derailed an entire season. Miami Dolphins. In 2013, the Dolphins' locker room became the center of an NFL scandal that exposed how brutal team culture could get. Lineman Richie Incognito relentlessly bullied teammate Jonathan Martin through racist texts, voicemails, and threats that would make any workplace implode. When Martin walked away mid-season, the NFL was forced to confront the ugly truth. Harassment wasn't isolated, it was institutional. Coaches allegedly encouraged toughening him up, while leadership looked the other way. The fallout was immediate: suspensions, resignations, and an investigation that changed league conduct rules forever. The Dolphins went from contenders to cautionary tale. It wasn't just one player gone rogue, it was an entire culture laid bare. Baltimore Ravens. In 2014, Ray Rice's shocking elevator footage didn't just change one career, it changed the entire NFL. The video showed Rice knocking his fiancée unconscious, and when the league initially handed him only a 2-game suspension, the public outrage was deafening. Months later, the full video surfaced, revealing the brutal reality the NFL had seemingly ignored. The Ravens cut Rice instantly, but the damage was irreversible. Fans and media accused the league of protecting stars over victims. Commissioner Roger Goodell admitted failure and overhauled the league's personal conduct policy. The incident didn't just stain Rice's career, it forced the NFL to finally confront the consequences of domestic violence in its ranks. Atlanta Falcons. Michael Vick was more than a superstar. He was a human highlight reel. But in 2007, the Falcons franchise quarterback was exposed for funding and participating in a dogfighting operation. The details were horrific, and the backlash was instant. Vick went from hero to pariah overnight, suspended indefinitely, and sentenced to prison. The Falcons were left in ruins, forced to rebuild their image from scratch. Yet the story didn't end there. Vick's later redemption arc, returning to the NFL, publicly atoning, and earning back respect, became one of sports' most polarizing comeback tales. The scandal remains one of the darkest chapters in NFL history, proof that even talent can't outshine cruelty. Las Vegas Raiders. In 2021, the Raiders' $100 million coach, John Gruden, resigned in disgrace after a decade of offensive emails surfaced. The messages, leaked during another investigation, contained racist and homophobic language that destroyed his credibility overnight. The timing was brutal. The team was winning. The move to Vegas was fresh, and Gruden was meant to be the face of their new era. Instead, the scandal exposed deep hypocrisy across the league. Only Gruden's emails were made public, raising questions about who else the NFL was protecting. Within days, he was gone, leaving chaos behind. The Raiders went from revival to disaster, and fans realized even in Vegas, reputation isn't always for sale. Washington Commanders. No franchise has been mired in dysfunction quite like the Commanders under Dan Snyder. For years, reports described a toxic workplace, sexual harassment, intimidation, and financial misconduct woven into the team's culture. The 2020 Washington Post expose blew it wide open, sparking investigations and congressional hearings. The NFL fined the team, but fans demanded transparency. Instead, they got silence and suspicion. Sponsors fled, fans disappeared, and Snyder's name became synonymous with chaos. By 2023, under immense pressure, he sold the team for over $6 billion. It ended an era defined not by football, but by scandal and disgrace. Few owners ever fell harder or deserved it more. Houston Texans. The Deshaun Watson saga was one of the most divisive in modern sports. Once seen as a franchise savior, Watson's legacy imploded after over 20 women accused him of misconduct during massage sessions. The lawsuits, settlements, and investigations dragged for years, staining both him and the Texans. Houston eventually traded him for a historic haul of draft picks, but their reputation didn't recover. The team settled with multiple women who accused them of enabling his behavior. Fans were split. Some saw a victim of false allegations, others saw a predator shielded by power. Either way, the Texans became ground zero for a conversation football tried to avoid for decades. Pittsburgh Steelers. In the late 2000s, Ben Roethlisberger's image took a major hit when two separate assault accusations surfaced within a year. No criminal charges stuck, but the NFL suspended him anyway for violating conduct rules. The media storm was relentless, and his reputation as a leader vanished. Steelers ownership considered cutting ties entirely, yet over time, he rebuilt his image through quiet seasons and consistent play. The controversy faded, but never disappeared. It became part of the complicated legacy of a quarterback who went from golden boy to cautionary tale. Roethlisberger's success couldn't fully erase the stain, and fans never quite looked at him the same way again. Cincinnati Bengals. Between 2005 and 2007, the Bengals were less a football team and more a police blotter. Over a dozen players were arrested for everything from DUIs to assault. The most infamous was receiver Chris Henry, whose repeated run-ins with the law symbolized the team's recklessness. Linebacker Odell Thurman and others followed suit, dragging the franchise into chaos. The media called them the Jail Bengals, and late-night hosts turned their dysfunction into a punchline. Head coach Marvin Lewis was blamed for losing control of the locker room. It took years to clean up the image. The Bengals weren't cursed, they were careless. But first, only cool people are subscribed to this channel, so hit that subscribe button before we go any further. Carolina Panthers. In 2017, team owner Jerry Richardson's empire collapsed almost overnight. A bombshell Sports Illustrated report accused him of harassment and racial misconduct toward employees, complete with hush money settlements. The NFL quickly launched an investigation, but Richardson didn't wait to see the outcome. He announced he'd sell the team before it finished. The once revered founder of the Panthers was forced out in disgrace. His statue outside the stadium became a symbol of shame, later removed under public safety reasoning. David Tepper bought the team for a record $2.275 billion, ushering in a new era. But the scandal left a stain that money couldn't erase. Charlotte had lost its football patriarch and gained a painful wake-up call. Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys call themselves America's team, but behind the spotlight, one of their darkest secrets hid for years. In 2015, longtime public relations executive Rich Dalrymple was accused of sneaking into the cheerleader locker room while they changed. The team quietly investigated and later paid a $2.4 million settlement, complete with non-disclosure agreements. Even worse, reports claimed he was once caught filming Jerry Jones's own daughter inappropriately during the NFL draft. Yet he stayed with the organization for 7 more years, only retiring just before the scandal went public. The story revealed how deep the Cowboys' image obsession ran and how far they'd go to protect it. Winning wasn't their only priority. Control was. Kansas City Chiefs. December 2012 will forever haunt the Chiefs. Linebacker Jovan Belcher shocked the world when he ended the life of his girlfriend, then himself at Arrowhead Stadium. The tragedy left the team paralyzed with grief. Belcher had shown no warning signs, no prior incidents, just a sudden, devastating act that forced the NFL to face its growing crisis around mental health and head trauma. Autopsies later revealed signs of CTE, fueling the league's ongoing concussion debate. The Chiefs played the next day in stunned silence, winning by instinct more than joy. The tragedy didn't just scar Kansas City, it changed how the entire league viewed the cost of violence and brain injury. New Orleans Saints. In 2012, the Saints' success story was shattered by Bountygate, a scheme that paid defensive players for injuring opponents. The NFL uncovered evidence that Hit's earning rewards were celebrated in team meetings, even after warnings. Head coach Sean Payton was suspended for a full season, the first in league history. Defensive coordinator Greg Williams was banned indefinitely, and the team was fined heavily. The scandal turned a beloved championship roster into villains overnight. but fans stayed loyal. In New Orleans, redemption stories run deep. When Peyton and Breeze eventually reunited, they played with something darker, a need to prove that they could win without crossing lines. Still, the reputation never fully recovered. San Francisco 49ers. In 2016, Colin Kaepernick took a knee and changed sports forever. What started as a protest against racial injustice became one of the most polarizing acts in NFL history. Some called him courageous, others called him unpatriotic. Sponsors pulled out, fans burned jerseys. The league's silence only made it louder. Kaepernick's contract ended quietly, but no team signed him again. Lawsuits and settlements followed, hinting at blacklisting. Years later, his gesture became a global movement. The 49ers lost a quarterback, but gained a symbol of protest that transcended football. It wasn't just a moment, it was a mirror held up to America, and the NFL couldn't look away. New York Jets. When Brett Favre joined the Jets in 2008, fans thought they'd landed a legend. Instead, they got a scandal. During his brief stint, Favre was accused of sending inappropriate texts and photos to a team employee. The league investigated and fined him, not for the messages, but for refusing to cooperate fully. The fallout embarrassed both Favre and the Jets, exposing how little protection existed for women in team workplaces. Years later, Favre's name resurfaced in another controversy involving welfare funds in Mississippi. For the Jets, his short tenure became a PR nightmare. They chased a Hall of Famer and instead got headlines that would haunt them for years. Green Bay Packers. In 2021, Aaron Rodgers sparked chaos off the field when he claimed to be immunized against COVID, only for reports to reveal he hadn't been vaccinated. The media storm was instant. Critics accused him of lying, supporters called it overblown. Rodgers doubled down with anti-establishment interviews, attacking the league and medical experts. The situation exposed a divide between fans who adored his independence and those who saw hypocrisy. Green Bay tried to contain the damage, but Rodgers had shifted from hero to lightning rod. He wasn't just playing quarterback anymore, he was playing culture warrior. The fallout showed that even legends can lose control of their own narrative. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Antonio Brown's career meltdown reached its climax in 2022. During a game against the Jets, he ripped off his jersey, threw his gloves into the crowd, and jogged shirtless into the tunnel flashing peace signs. Cameras caught everything. The Buccaneers cut him immediately, but the drama didn't end there. Brown claimed the team tried to force him to play through an injury, releasing text messages and voice notes to prove it. Coaches denied it. Fans didn't know who to believe. The spectacle dominated headlines and defined his chaotic legacy. He went viral one last time, not for a touchdown, but for walking away from the game entirely. Minnesota Vikings. The 2005 Love Boat scandal turned the Vikings into late-night comedy material. Several players rented party boats on Lake Minnetonka, and what happened next made national news. Reports detailed explicit acts, hired escorts, and crew members so horrified they called the police. Charges followed, reputation shattered, and head coach Mike Tice's authority crumbled, sponsors fled, and ownership cleaned house. It became a symbol of excess and arrogance gone wrong. Even years later, the words Love Boat became shorthand for NFL players gone wild. Minnesota wasn't just embarrassed, they became a reminder that fame, money, and impulse make a volatile mix. And this story proved it the hard way. Chicago Bears. When receiver Sam Hurd was arrested in 2011, the league was stunned. He wasn't a superstar, just a role player, but the case was straight out of a crime drama. Federal agents caught him trying to buy massive quantities of drugs to distribute across multiple states. He wasn't dabbling. He was allegedly organizing. Texts, recordings, and witness accounts made the case airtight. The Bears cut him instantly, but his story became a warning about double lives in sports. Hurd's NFL dreams were gone in an instant, replaced by a federal prison sentence. The Bears moved on, but fans never forgot the player who turned Sunday football into a cartel headline, Cleveland Browns. In 2009, wide receiver Dante Stallworth made headlines for the worst reason imaginable. After a night of drinking in Miami, he struck and killed a pedestrian while driving intoxicated. His blood alcohol level was well above the legal limit, and he was charged with DUI manslaughter. Despite serving only 30 days in jail due to a plea deal, the backlash was fierce. Fans and critics accused the system of leniency for athletes. The NFL suspended him for the entire season, and his once promising career never recovered. It was a tragedy that reminded everyone how quickly a life and a legacy can crumble. The Browns didn't just lose a player, they inherited a moral reckoning. Indianapolis Colts. When Andrew Luck retired in 2019, the league froze. Just 29 years old and in his prime, he walked away from football, citing mental exhaustion and years of injuries. Fans booed when the news broke mid-game. a moment that revealed the darker side of fandom. Luck wasn't quitting. He was saving himself from the pain that never ended. Shoulder surgeries, broken ribs, torn muscles, each comeback took more out of him. His departure left the Colts stunned. Forced to rebuild overnight, time softened the outrage, and fans began to understand. Luck's story wasn't about weakness. It was about survival, in a sport that rarely allows it. His exit was shocking, but it was human. Jacksonville Jaguars. Urban Meyer's time in Jacksonville was a masterclass in chaos. Hired in 2021 to rebuild the franchise, he instead became a headline machine. From hiring a controversial strength coach accused of racism to skipping the team flight and being filmed at a bar with a woman who wasn't his wife, it spiraled fast. Players and coaches reportedly hated him. He allegedly berated assistants, clashed with veterans, and even kicked a kicker during practice. The Jaguars fired him before he could finish his first season. What was supposed to be a culture reboot became a circus. Meyer's NFL career ended as quickly as it began, leaving Jacksonville to clean up the wreckage. Philadelphia Eagles. In 2013, a viral video captured wide receiver Riley Cooper shouting a racial slur at a concert, and it exploded online. The Eagles suspended him, but later brought him back, citing forgiveness and team unity. Many players were furious, and the locker room fractured. Cooper ended up having his best statistical season the following year, which made the controversy worse. Critics accused the organization of valuing performance over principle. It exposed a hypocrisy that sports fans had seen too often. Winning above everything, the team moved on, but the damage lingered. For a franchise built on grit and brotherhood, that summer showed how fast trust can shatter. New York Giants. Lawrence Taylor redefined defense and off-field chaos. Throughout the 1980s, he dominated offenses while battling addiction and controversy. He admitted to using drugs before games, failed tests, and faced repeated suspensions. The NFL looked the other way for years because he was too valuable to lose. In retirement, his troubles continued, including arrests and a 2010 case that further complicated his legacy. Yet despite it all, his talent was undeniable. Taylor was both unstoppable and unstable, a walking contradiction. The Giants celebrated his greatness, but couldn't escape the shadow of his off-field life. He remains proof that legends can be brilliant and deeply flawed at the same time. Detroit Lions. Back in 1963, the Lions were rocked by a gambling scandal that sent shockwaves through the NFL. Star defensive tackle Alex Karras and Packers running back Paul Hornung were both suspended for betting on games, including their own teams. Commissioner Pete Rozelle came down hard, banning them for the entire season to preserve the league's integrity. It was one of the first major gambling punishments in NFL history. Karras eventually returned to football and even Hollywood fame, but his reputation took decades to recover. Long before sports betting was mainstream, Detroit learned that gambling's cost isn't just financial, it's the trust between the game and the fans. Tennessee Titans. In 1999, a bizarre accusation lit up headlines. Jaguars coach Tom Coughlin claimed that Tennessee's defensive coordinator, Greg Williams, had somehow obtained Jacksonville's playbook before the season. The league investigated, but never confirmed wrongdoing. The Titans then beat the Jaguars 3 times that year, including in the AFC Championship, fueling conspiracy theories that still circulate today. Some Jaguars players insist the Titans knew their calls. Others say it was just bad luck. The alleged playbook scandal added tension to a bitter rivalry. True or not, it gave Titans fans bragging rights and turned one ordinary season into NFL folklore that still divides fan bases. Arizona Cardinals. In 2018, general manager Steve Keim was arrested for extreme DUI, a charge that carried mandatory jail time. He apologized publicly, served his suspension, and paid a $200,000 fine. But reports soon emerged that during the suspension, the Cardinals allegedly used burner phones to keep in contact with him, an apparent violation of league rules. The organization denied it, but insiders whispered otherwise. The story faded quickly, yet it exposed how teams sometimes prioritize damage control over discipline. Keim eventually returned to work, but the Cardinals' credibility took a hit. Even small scandals can echo loudly in a league that thrives on image and control. Los Angeles Rams. When the Rams left St. Louis for Los Angeles in 2016, fans felt betrayed and soon, evidence suggested they were right. Owner Stan Kroenke had publicly promised to work with the city on a new stadium while secretly buying land in California for SoFi Stadium. St. Louis sued, accusing the NFL of fraud and deception. After years of legal war, the league settled for $790 million, one of the largest payouts in sports history. It exposed the shady side of relocation politics, backroom deals, broken promises, and corporate greed disguised as business decisions. The Rams may have gained a stadium, but they lost a fan base forever. Los Angeles Chargers. When the Chargers abandoned San Diego for Los Angeles in 2017, the move looked like a disaster from day one. Fans in San Diego felt betrayed, furious that decades of loyalty meant nothing. Owner Dean Spanos blamed failed stadium negotiations, but most saw greed at play. In LA, they became tenants in someone else's city, often outnumbered by visiting fans. For years, home games looked like away games. The franchise's relocation showed the human side of business decisions, how communities can be discarded for profit. The Chargers gained a new address, but not a new identity. They left behind their heart and half their fan base in the process. Denver Broncos. In 2010, the Broncos were caught in a sequel nobody asked for, Spygate 2. Head coach Josh McDaniels, a former Patriots assistant, was fined after a staffer secretly filmed the 49ers practice before a game in London. McDaniels claimed he didn't order it, but admitted he failed to report it. The NFL punished him, and 2 weeks later, the struggling coach was fired. The scandal sealed his reputation as a Belichick imitator who couldn't escape controversy. Denver fans, already frustrated with the team's collapse, had seen enough. McDaniels' time in Denver became a cautionary tale. You can copy the Patriots' playbook, but not their magic. Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks' darkest controversy came in a moment that still feels surreal. The final play of Super Bowl 49. Down by 4, with the ball at the 1-yard line and Marshawn Lynch, the most feared power back in football, ready to punch it in, Seattle called a pass. Russell Wilson's throw was intercepted by Malcolm Butler, sealing one of the most shocking endings in sports history. But what followed was even messier. Reports surfaced that the decision wasn't just bad strategy, it exposed deep fractures inside the locker room. Players accused coaches of favoring Wilson, resentment brewed toward Pete Carroll's culture of positivity, and the dynasty window slammed shut. The team that prided itself on unity, the Legion of Boom, the Brotherhood, began to fracture from within. That one call didn't just lose a championship, it broke the trust that built an empire. If you like this video, consider watching this next one, which YouTube thinks you are going to really love.